more weird stuff. Like, for example, Kyle Spitz's biological dad talked to one of my reporter friends, Ken Silva, and he had him on video going back and forth. First, he was saying, no, she wasn't murdered. It was an accident. And then he said, oh, she took her own life. And then at one point he goes, Kyle had nothing to do with his mom's murder. And Ken Silva goes, hold on, can you just why did you call it her murder? And he's like, oh, you better not publish this. And then he says, I am a federal contractor out of DC. I have a secret security clearance. And if you say anything about this, I'm going to give it to a PR department and I'll sue you.
Great.
And that's when we go, what the hell? And so, because also his mom worked for Lockheed Martin.
Lord Almighty.
Because of course she did. So there are these little complexities in the case that were just
it's
what
weird.
is happening?
There's another story.
Why do they give meth addicts security clearance here? What is happening with our government?
I think we've spun out of control, and all of these operations have just taken over, and we're living in an aftermath where there's just little pockets of it, but they're everywhere.
Yeah,
Gladio,
weird.
Ultra, Lockheed Martin, for sure. My
life got into a tailspin.
Well, that's the problem with all this. How do you even keep grounded?
Yeah. And then I had his friends start to threaten me.
Of course.
And I had to call the police and file a police report. And then the FBI called me and we're like, okay, well, you're the victim in a federal investigation now. And it was the whole fucking thing, man. It's just been really overwhelming. But I'm blessed to have been able to be at the front lines of this. I have not stopped reporting. I will continue to report. I continue to receive multiple death threats every day from this group. And I continue to push forward. I'm not going to stop reporting on it. I let them know that I'm not going to stop reporting.
Well, and thankfully, you're also a good shot. For those who don't know, you shoot a gun fairly well. Are you an instructor or something?
Pretty well.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was a pro competitive shooter for years and years. Yeah.
Crazy.
I say was because I injured my shoulder, so I've been out of the game for a couple of years now. But yeah. And
you've been a PI for how long?
Probably around 7 years or so.
And what made you get into that?
So because of my shooting background, I've been a women's self-defense instructor and a handgun instructor for a long time. So I'm a licensed bodyguard. I actually have the highest level of armed personal protection, clearance too. And so I started to do security work. And then in Texas, you can have, as a security officer, you can basically get your PI license with no extra credentials. And so I figured I might as well. Right. But most of that, the real life stuff was cheating spouses and child custody stuff. But I started to get more into the online stuff personally. So when I say PI, I'm not doing this kind of investigation under my license.
Right. It's just for fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a hoot. I tell you.
I love getting death threats. So you say you're a mother, right?
Yes.
How do you feel about the future your child's going to inherit? What has changed in the way you see the internet and, your child, and how do you
it's horrifying.
Reinforce safety moving forward?
It's a living nightmare. I think that's been probably the biggest struggle that I have is having a kid and seeing all of these horrible things happen. How do we protect our kids from this kind of thing? Every day I get closer and closer to just telling, off the grid life where my kid has no access to the internet. Right. But then I take it back. I'm like, that's crazy. You're being crazy. Right. You want your kid to have a normal life. And I think I joke about this, but it's not a joke. It's real. When I started to really research all of this child exploitation stuff, going back to Twitch, when I exposed the giant predator network on Twitch years back, I think that my daughter, I've always warned her about bad guys, not, so my kid's never been afraid of monsters or anything, never. Right. But also, I think that I went a little too far. And she kind of got an anxiety complex and I had to so now we're having to dial it back because I think panicked old mom maybe was a little too overbearing and too foreboding about bad guys at a young age. She wasn't quite old enough. So now she's, instead of monsters under her bed, she's afraid of bad guys.
Yeah. I mean, I am too. I get it.
I feel bad about it.
I know.
Cause I'm okay, at some point you have to be okay, I went a little too far.
I think
You know,
I have two kids, a third on the way, and I dread the world they're going to inherit because it's not.
it's
I mean,
terrifying.
it's unique that the technology, that aspect that we have now, has accelerated. Speaking of accelerationism, all of the darkness, right, and the evil and the
Mhm.
violence, because it's been dark forever. But I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years,
I
and that's
mean,
what the
I'm hoping
accelerationists
that,
want.
and one of the things that I advocate for is, I say it's threefold. We advocate for child safety,
Hmm.
we advocate for parental awareness and education, and then we advocate for big tech accountability.
Hmm.
Because in a lot of cases, these big tech platforms, as much as I don't like the idea of regulating, and I don't support online safety bills that are Trojan horses for
Yeah,
like digital ID stuff, and
yeah.
like I could see through all of that, but I also see that big tech, by remaining complicit and accountable for this stuff and not doing anything, allows the government to go, look at this huge, horrible problem. We need to step in with regulation. And it's because big tech is not doing their part, because they're not taking child safety seriously enough on their own,
Hmm.
that the government is able to kind of step in and be like, well, we have to solve this problem for you guys.
I feel like it's going to
And
get there.
it already is. And they're pushing for this online safety bill now. And of
Hmm.
course, the guise is, oh, it's to protect the children. But really, what they want to do is completely do away with internet anonymity.
Yeah, which is a huge problem, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
Even though there's a lot of weak people who hide behind anonymity,
Mhm.
I'd rather them have that than
Right.
making everyone sign up for some
Yeah.
ridiculous thing.
Well, so number one, we have to fight these criminals because
Yeah.
there's pedophiles out there who are hurting our kids and we need to
Hmm.
stop them. Number two, I think more important than big tech stuff is to informing parents about the risks, because it's really not like, people tend to get really judgy and be like, well, my kid would never be a victim of that because I'm such a great parent. And you'd be amazed at how many
Yeah.
parents just like that end up with their kids victims because they're not tech literate enough,
Yep.
and because they're complicit, because they close their eyes and go, oh yeah, or they're complacent rather, right? They just say that
Yep.
would never happen to
It's just
me.
they're on Roblox all day.
Um,
They're fine.
yeah, they don't
Meanwhile,
understand. So
yep.
parents need to be educated too, and know how to talk to their kids about online safety. And
Yeah.
so I hope to advocate for that. And if anyone takes anything away from this, it's like, you really do need to helicopter your kids online. You
Yeah.
have to helicopter your kids online. You have to see everything you have to have godlike vision of everything they
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to be kind of tech savvy,
Yeah. True.
you know?
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like, well, we don't, have a lot of, I'm almost a Luddite. Obviously I'm not, because we're doing this right now on Zoom. So I do appreciate technology to some degree, but I also detest a lot of technology and what it's done to modernity, and it's made us bankrupt of morals. Obviously, on a
For
whole,
sure.
it's on a whole scale, because
Yeah.
there's like obviously not evil people, but you're accepting a lot of I don't know, depravity into your life, but with a lot of these modern luxuries. And then the evil people take advantage of it and they prey upon your kids. Like this same thing with that story I did in Ohio with the child predators. Even though some of those guys were just dumb, uh, they're infiltrating your child through Roblox, and all these things, just pretending
Yeah.
to be some
Yeah.
imaginary younger person on these
Right.
websites. So
What are
yeah.
the pathways of prevention?
Hmm.
What all can we do, right? There's, first of all, we need to people like me and my group of researchers, investigators who go out of our way for free to track these guys down. But some of the stuff that we've been doing, that we've been able to provide to police, is the identities of some of these anonymous figures online and trying to figure out who they are so that they can go to jail.
Yeah.
So hunting, hunting these people online is one thing. We need more resources, I think, for law enforcement. Not more authority,
Hmm.
because anyone can do it, right?
Hmm.
Just more resources. And I think that the second thing is, obviously parents. We need to advocate for parent education. And then third, yeah, we do need to keep being loud
Hmm.
and keep being annoying towards big tech and keep advocating for them to take it upon themselves to, actually take more action on these things. Like, one thing that Twitter can do is ban the hashtags that they use to get around.
Right.
They've done that plenty of times. That doesn't infringe on anyone's right. It doesn't require ID verification. It doesn't do anything except just constantly monitoring the landscape and being aware that these are the hashtags that you need to eliminate.
You know what I
They do
worry
that with
about?
child predator networks and
You
stuff.
know what I worry about though is them just then changing their hashtags to something else, and how much harder will it be to find it?
Well, but that's why you have people like us who
Yeah.
monitor it. We
Yeah.
tell Twitter all the time, you need to ban this hashtag.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, there's a lot of little things that they could do that don't require infringement of our rights,
Yeah.
you know, that they're
It,
not doing.
it's almost like obviously the evil stuff, especially going after children, has been happening for ages. And like I said earlier, the internet has accelerated that, but it's also given people like you the chance to weaponize the internet against them. So hopefully there's some balance there, which I appreciate. Before I let you go, BX, I did want to ask you, what will you do when you become a viral sensation on Twitter and everyone thinks you're a psyop?
Oh
Is it going to
man.
happen? And what
It's so
are your
funny that I
thoughts?
posted that and then I manifested it because then I had a post go like viral-ish, like
Oh,
right
geez.
afterwards. And I had people going like, you're a psyop. And I was like, oh no, it's
You
happening.
brought it on
I
yourself
think
right away.
people are so sensitized to this idea that anything that goes viral is a psyop. And I think a lot of times it is.
It does feel like that. So many
Yeah, so then I
inorganic
worry
people.
that I will go viral and people will think I'm a psyop because I've conditioned them to do that.
Well, you've had somewhat of a presence. I mean, online. Some of these people, they came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
You know,
from
that's why I feel
obscurity
so
to viral sensation to
right.
left hand of Nick Fuentes in a picture. Yeah.
But then not the day after. You know.
Yeah, then the competing influence operations knock them out. It's almost like these, I don't know. Hey, Shane, I mentioned to you before like this movie called Branded.
Yeah.
Did you ever actually watch
I
that
have not.
movie?
No. Tell me again
Yeah.
about that. Why should we all be watching that?
So, you shouldn't. Honestly, it's a terrible movie. But you'll appreciate the concept, which was like that this influence operation enacted by a fast food company to like because people were too healthy and they wanted to kind of make fat cool again so that they could get people to buy fast food. And so they have this huge elaborate influence operation with this viral story where this obese woman died, and it's a long thing, but at the end, it's like he's hallucinating the brands fighting each other like Godzilla in the street. So it kind of unravels. It's kind of Russian,
Sweet.
a Russian movie. So it's a little
Sweet.
bit weird.
Sounds
But anyways, the concept of it is like worth watching it for,
okay.
you know? But that's how I
Perfect.
see some of this stuff now, these like competing influence operations like Godzilla, like fighting each other.
Yeah, I mean, don't we know that? I believe so. The official story says in 2015 or 2016, didn't Russia supposedly set up two different type of protests for people on either side of the protest in America, like
Probably.
through online, sort of what we're talking about operations, but more political focused. And that
Yeah,
happens
it's all
the time.
theater.
Yeah, it's all theater.
Yeah.
Well,
The whole world is a stage.
Perfect way to end this. BX, please tell people where they can find you online. Tell them again about your Substack and yeah, let them know.
Yeah, we're working really hard on getting some of my work published on Substack. It's BX Writes. And then probably my biggest presence right now is Twitter, BX_on_X on Twitter/X.
Awesome.
Yeah, I release a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm hoping if you go to my Twitter, you can look at I put like a mega thread there, so you can kind of go through each of my little arcs that we talked about here and go down the rabbit holes as much or as little as you want. And I'm hoping to get a lot more content like produced. I just have a day job and a kid.
Yeah,
So it's hard.
and you do make art while talking about psychopathic Satanists,
Yeah,
right?
I do make art. You can actually watch me make art, and you can buy my art as well.
Where can they find that?
It's on my Twitter,
Cool.
well, I'll give you my link.
Yeah,
because it's like a lot, but I'll give you
Perfect.
my Beacons link. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it and hope you have a great day.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.